In this module, we are going to see what are the various CSS properties which are most commonly used. So when we are talking, we have already seen a lot of CSS properties, but here we are going to look at them in a more detailed way. So what are CSS properties? So see, CSS properties, when you Google, then in Mozilla you'll find some of the references. So for example, color or border, these things are what we are discussing right now. So these are called CSS properties, and as you can see, these are like a lot of them. So in fact it is a partial list. If you go to this link, then you will get a much comprehensive list. So as you can see, this is like huge, lots and lots of properties are there in CSS. But the idea is not to get overwhelmed by this. Nobody can remember all of them. It's just that we will discuss a big chunk of them which are most commonly used, and then as and when you come across your needs, then you can come to these sort of documentation and you can have a better look at it, that what does this mean. So simply, for example, you are trying to see that, okay, what is this border, or what is this background color. So if you see something like, let's say, background color, right, then you can go here and then have a detailed look into it, and as you can do the same with all the various properties. So the idea here is that just to give you an overview of which of the CSS properties are most commonly used, and then we'll start with them. Okay, so first, many times we have already used color, right? So color is basically a property, CSS property, which is used to set the foreground color value of an element's text and text decorations. What are text decorations will come to it later, but simply you can understand that if uh, some text is there, then background color is basically whatever will be at the back of the text, and foreground color is what will be the text of this particular color itself. And when we are talking about text decorations, these are going to be decorations means additional things which are applied to this text, which might not be actually text. So for example, let's say there is some underline done on this text, then the color can basically target those things also. Anyways, so let's have a basic declaration of color. So we have seen that color red, this is like very common. So we put a color property and then define a value which is a valid color. Now we have seen generally that, okay, the values are generally normal names of the colors. However, here we'll see that there are some other ways of defining a color. We'll go into each of them one by one, but just let's get started with this basic thing. So let's say this div is there, and I have just written hello world, which is visible here. So why not put a class and give it a name, let's say hello, and then we'll go in our internal style sheet and do something like hello, and then we can target this, right? And here we can write color, let's say red, and when we refresh, then we see that this color, this text color has become red. So this is what I was talking about, but this was very simple. In fact, you might think that, okay, this red, no, red, green, blue, what are the various list of colors which I can use. So just in a bit I will let you know, but before that, let's consider other ways in which colors can be defined. So this is also a pretty standard format. In fact, apart from common colors, whenever you want a fine grained appropriate color, then you have to use something known as color codes. Okay, so if you Google something like CSS color code, then you will see something like this, that okay, red means this FF0000. What does this mean? Orange means this. So what does this mean? So basically the idea is that all the colors, in fact in your childhood you might have heard this and learned in your classes, that all the colors are made up of basically three components: red, green and blue. So what, and in fact you see there is a function also, RGB, which basically means red, green, blue. So if we have three colors, red, green and blue, and what are these numbers in a bit I'll let you know, but if we take three components, red, green and blue components of any color, then we can create any color out of it in proper ratio if we mix it. That is the idea. So here they are trying to say that, so the first component is red one. So this part, this part and this part, all these are components, and these components can vary in the range 0 to 255. So you can understand that this is like a 8-bit number, right? So 8-bit number means that it can take values from 256 values it can take, right, which is in the range of 0 to 255. So if in 0 to 255 range we put red, green and blue in that ratio, so let's say we want to take 50% of red, then we will take something around 128 something weight of red, and then we'll take some weight of green and blue and then mix them. So the simplest is what? Simplest is, let's say I want to create red, which means that the red weight has to be 100% and green and blue will be 00. Then it will be pure red, right? Which means that it will be 25500. That will be red. Okay. So the common thing is common color code is this red, but the fine grained color combination in terms of RGB will be 25500, and that is what you are seeing here, that this 25500 is the color combination, RGB combination of red. Now what is this FF000 thing? So what is this is that it's just another representation of this same RGB. What happens is that you put a hash, and after that you put 6 digits, 6 sort of letters, and these letters are basically hexadecimal numbers, and each of the two so 6 means that 2 letters each. 2 letters will consist of one 8-bit character, which will basically say that from 0 to 255, that range we are targeting through these two characters. Why? See, in hexadecimal, basically each digit will basically count for not 0 to 9, since it's hexadecimal, it will count for 15, 0 to F. Okay. Now 15, 0 to 15 is total overall, instead of 10, each letter represents 16 letters, 16 digits from 0 to 9, and then A, B, C, D, E, F. Now you can understand that if one of them takes 4 bits, then 2 of them will take 8 bit, and that's why I was saying that since 0 to 255 is like 8 bits, so similarly 2 of these characters will account for 8 bits. Anyways, if you don't have a basic idea of hexadecimal, then you can simply write something like this in Google, that let's say convert decimal to hexadecimal, right? And then you can get some links where you can convert. So let's say 255, I want to convert it to hexadecimal, so you can see that FF. So definitely you can learn a bit about hexadecimal numbers, but that is not needed. Just you need to understand that every decimal number between 0 to 255, if you want to use this in this hash color code notation, then you have to convert that in hexadecimal, and that is case sensitive. You can understand this is FF 255. You can write a small FF also, that is fine. Now what is this color? Firstly tell me. See, this is 00, which means this the whole first combination is 0. Second is FF, and now we knew that this FF means 255. So this thing is 255, and then next part is 0. This whole thing. So this color means 0, 255, 0. 0 to 55 0 is what? The second color part of the color combination RGB is G, which means that this is whole green. This is complete green. This color is complete green, right? So you can try that here also. So let's say instead of this I write something like RGB. So firstly let's try with red only. So 255 comma 0 comma 0, right? This is this is suggesting that it is red, and anyways here also we can refresh and see that it is still red. However, if we do something like it is 0 and here it is 255, then we'll see that it is green, right? So the color is green. Now we have understood this, and any color which you are thinking, you can simply so let's say 180 is some decimal number and you want to convert it into hexadecimal, then you can convert it and it is B4. So you can understand that any and again if you want to write it in that hash code, then it will be what? 0 255 255, which means that it will be hash 00 FF00, and again it will be coming to green. You can see that, right? So basically this is how it is going to be. In fact you don't need to remember all these. You can simply write let's say HTML color codes, and whatever color you need. So you can understand that this thing, this FF5733. So see, this FF means 255, and this 57 and 33. So you can see like, okay, so let's say decimal to hexadecimal we are seeing. So you can clearly see that this this 87 in decimal will be 57. See, 87 in decimal, if you convert it is 57, right? And similarly this 51 part, this decimal is 33. So you see this 51 is 33. So basically you understand the idea that both of these are same only. It's just that how you want to represent depends on you. There is something called HSL also. We will not go into that because mostly this hex code is only used. Anyways, you can learn more about it or we can discuss it sometime later, but the point is that how we see RGB combination and hex code combination, that we have understood right now. Okay, so the idea is that, okay, we let's say copy this and we can use this in our, let's say, RGB, then it will be orange, right? The same color, this color, and you can see, refresh, that that color has come. So you don't need to remember much of these. In fact, you can simply go and like you'll get a lot of charts of various colors. You don't have to do anything, just see that which color you are interested in, and then simply select that, and then you will be able to use that color. Okay, and there will be like lots of pages which with the various colors which will be available, so that is not going to be an issue. Moreover, even in the normal standard colors, which they will be available directly in VS Code also. So simply when you write, let's say, color colon, then you will be able to get the whole list of colors which are standard color available. And anyways, any other color also, if you write, so let's say randomly, let's say I write something like 87 FA33 whatever, then see this color is something like this. Let's say I write something like this. So each of the colors which are going to be what the color is, final color is going to be, that in that suggestion VS Code will give. The point is that you have to understand that how this thing is formed. Okay, so we have understood two things, that RGB in this fashion and this hex code fashion, right? Now you see that here there after 6 there are two more, so this thing is like 8 characters, right? So what is this last part? Similarly here you see that in this example there is again this another part, this last part. So what is this? Okay, so this thing is called alpha channel, which is used for transparency or opacity of the color, which means that, okay, which means that let's say I have RGB, let's say red I have, so 255 00 I have, but this is like solid red. I want like a shade, a transparency, not solid but somewhat it should be transparent. So if you give something like, let's say 0.5, then you see that this will be slightly dull. So what is happening actually is that this is now not 100% transparent, it is somewhat and the background is white, but even if let's say background is green or something, then that green will be visible through this color. So background we will see after some time, but the idea is that anything which is like transparent to opaque, there is a complete range, right? This part is a decimal from 0 to 1. So if it is 0, it is completely transparent, and if it is 1, then it is completely opaque, and if it is in between, then it will be partially transparent. So in between means you can put 0.2, 0.6, whatever. So you understand that in that sense this denotes the opacity. Opacity is what? Opacity is opposite of transparency, right? So if it is 1, it means that it is completely opaque, means transparency is 0, and if it is 0, which means that opacity is 0, which means that transparency is 100%, which means it is clearly visible. So right now if you see, then see the text is gone actually. Why text is gone? Because the text is now completely transparent, so it is not visible, because whatever is the background color, that is just visible through the text, but text is still there. You see, if you try to select, then text is still there. If you copy and paste, in fact, you see that the text is still there, but the idea is that it has become completely transparent. So so this last part accounts for that. So here we understood that in terms of decimal, we can write from 0 to 1 any value as the fourth argument. Now what is this in here? Here what happens that similarly, since this is hexadecimal notation, so this last part will account for in values in the range 0 to 255. And you can understand that, let's say I keep something like 80, then basically you try to understand that what is this 80. So you can create a decimal out of it, right? How? So let's say hexadecimal to decimal, right? So if you do that, then you will see that my value is 80. What is decimal equivalent of 80, right? So hexadecimal is 80, then decimal equivalent is 128. Okay, now so you understand why this is 128. The hexadecimal is like basically raised to the power 16, so it is like 16 8 into 16 raised to the power 1, right? So 16 into 8 plus 0, so that's why it is 128. Now the point is that this is 128, so you can understand that I can have 128 out of 255 or 256, you can say, because like it is the range is from 0 to 255, so it is approximately 0.5, which means that this value 80 accounts for around half of same as like around 50% of transparency. In a similar manner, if you need some value, then you can use some other value in the range. So 128 is almost in the middle of 0 to 255. That's why it accounts for around half of the opacity. But in a similar manner, you can create other values here. Now you see another syntax where it is 3 letters. What does that mean? 3 letters is just a shortcut for 6 letters. What happens is that if some color code is written in 3 letters, it means that just repeat every character twice. So if 0 is there, then think that 0 is written twice. If F is there, then F is written twice, 0 is written twice, which means that 0F0 means 00 FF00, which means this thing is same as this, right? So we can test it out here. We'll see that, okay, let's write a shortcut color code. Let's say hash F00. Now see, it has become red. Why? Because F00 will mean 25500. Why? Because F now means FF, 0 means 0 and 00 and 0 means 00, which means that F00 is basically FF0000, and that's why that we already know that it is red. So in a similar fashion, like you can write anything. Let's say A85, right? Then this A85 means AA8855, and that will come, whatever the hexadecimal value that is there, that will come out to be this thing, sort of this khaki sort of color, right? So now you understand that how to apply these colors in this short way. So this like these are some, there are some common colors which can be simply which like CSS developers have remembered in 3 letters, so that is easy to use, handy, right? But whenever you see 6 digits, it is like this, but whenever you see 3 digits, you understand now that what does it mean. Don't get overwhelmed by this. Most of the times you'll use just one or two of them, but definitely it will be my job here to tell you what are the various syntaxes available, so that you, when you see some CSS code anywhere, then you can understand those. Now what is this 4 letter? 4 letter is again same like this. So 4 letters means repeat all of them twice again here also. So this thing is 00FF0088. 88. Okay, so in a similar fashion, this 88 will be now the part of the opacity. So 88, whatever the decimal it will account for, and corresponding to the ratio with respect to 255, that is going to be the ratio of opacity which is going to be applied to that color. Now this another thing we are seeing is that apart from these patterns, one other pattern is that you can use percentage also for transparency or opacity, which means that if I am writing 25% here, that means that it is 0.25. If I'm writing 50%, it means it is 0.5. So if 25% means, which means that opacity is 0.25, right, or 25%, or and then transparency is 75%. So in that sense you can understand. One another syntax is something like this, where you don't put comma, right? So you can use this RGB function without comma also. So this is also fine. In fact, if you see and refresh, then you will see that it works fine. However, there is a small caveat here, is that when you don't use comma, then the 4th argument you can't write here just by space. The 4th argument has to be given by a slash, which means that if you do give some transparency, let's say 0.5 or 0.4, then you can't simply write space here. This will be invalid. You have to write a slash, then that is a valid transparency. Okay, so these are the standard ways. Now let's go in deep this RGB, and sometimes you will see at some places RGBA. What does that mean? So basically RGB and RGBA, which means that the same thing which I am writing here, I could have written RGBA also. Actually both are aliases of each other. You can use RGB or RGBA, both will work in any browser. Okay, so see, exactly the same thing. If I make the, let's say, opacity 1, then it's like this. So basically RGB and RGBA, and so obviously RGB is shorter than why to write RGBA, but A means alpha channel. So there was a confusion, lots of confusion, and that's why earlier there were 2 functions, but now on all modern browsers implement just both of them as aliases, because simply due to the number of arguments, you can easily recognize that whether alpha channel is there or not. RGB, red, green, blue, and alpha channel. So simply in this format, if we are having 4 arguments, then it knows that yeah, alpha channel is there. And in this format, if there is a slash and after that, then it knows that there is alpha channel. There is no need to specifically say RGBA or something, which means that RGB and RGBA are aliases of each other. Red, green, blue, and alpha channel. Alpha channel means opacity channel. You can understand it like opposite of transparency. Now this alpha channel represents the color's opacity, which I just said, which is a measure of transparency. Something like that, if alpha value is 1, which means that it is 100% opaque, which means that transparent is 0% transparent. Or if the alpha value is 0 or 0%, then it means that it is 0% opaque, which means 100% transparent. Okay, this we already saw red, green, blue can be these numbers in the range 0 to 255, or percentages. Now don't use percentages because I don't know, like some browsers don't support these percentages, so it's better to simply use 0 to 255, that range value. However, for alpha channel, you can use the value between 0 and 1, and you can use this as a percentage also, and this will work fine in all the browsers. Okay, now let's come back to color values. So as I was saying earlier, that okay, there are many predefined colors, but how do you know that okay, what are the valid colors? Let's say I don't want to use that complicated code or something, I just want to use some friendly name of a particular color, but how do I know that what are the various already colors defined? They are called color keywords. Okay, and if you Google something like CSS color keywords, then you will most probably in some Mozilla documentation you will find some list. So this is a complete list of keywords. If you click this, then you will get the whole list of all the standard colors, which means that if you want to pick maroon or whatever, so these things will be already there, and you can directly take these color names and you can, so lime or olive, right, whatever color, these are standard, so I can directly use it here and they will work just fine, which means that it's better to have this color codes or something like bookmarked somewhere, or you can easily Google it, you can easily find it. The point is that you can find all the colors which are available. So earlier only these colors were there, but in the recent versions of CSS, which is like years and years old, which means that right now all of these colors will be supported in all the browsers, but you can get a complete list of all the colors which are supported in CSS. Okay, fair enough. And just like anything in CSS, these things are also case insensitive, which means that you can use capital R, ED, or whole caps, everything will work fine. They are not case sensitive. Okay, and as I showed you that you can go to this link and get a complete list of colors for your CSS. Now transparent is one of the colors. Let me see whether transparent is mentioned here or not. Transparent, yeah, so transparent, yeah, okay. So but they have mentioned here, they have not mentioned it in the list, but they have mentioned that this is a keyword which accounts for the transparent color. So transparent color basically means that let's say there is some background, and I so which means that basically there is no need of this keyword. You can directly use RGB 0000, RGB A or RGB whatever 0, which means that and anyways these three colors does not matter, because if it is 0, then whatever color you set here, that will be completely transparent, right? Because opacity is 0, which means that it will be 100% transparent. So but you can understand it like transparent is just a shorthand representation for this thing. And we'll see that later, that when you are trying to, let's say you set some background color of this whole thing, and then you set the this text color to transparent, then the whole thing will not be visible. Or let's say there are two layers, one top of each other, and that we'll see later. But the point is that transparent color can be very helpful, especially in CSS gradients or something, which we'll see later, which means that the like some images are transparent. Similarly, CSS full has a complete full support for transparency also, which will come which will see that it will be very handy at a later point of time. Anyways, we'll come to that in some time. Now there is something called current color. The current color basically points to the color color property currently being set for the current element. So we can see that for the current element, this thing, the color property is red. Okay. Now what if I want to use that same color for something else where that color is not available? Okay, so for standard things like text color or text decoration, border, this color will be available, but but it will be helpful to the places where this color property is not available, but I want to use that same color. For example, let's say I have another div here, and that div has like whatever, nothing much, but the idea is that uh, this div which I just created, I want this div, I want to give this div a background color which is same as the color in this context. So in this context, the color is what? The color is red, which we set here. I want to set the same color, the background of this, right? So what I can do is that I can let's say have some class name here. So let's say class is equal to some temp, whatever. Now this temp, I can give a background color. So now you know by default the background is what? By default the background is transparent. It is completely like whatever is the background of the whole page, that is the background of this. And I can give this any color, so something like this is the background. But what if that I don't want? I want this background color to be the same color which is this thing. Now you can see that I can set some color, or by default it is transparent, but I don't want, I want the same color which is in this context. So in that context, this background color is not getting the color property by default, so I can use this current color value. If I use this current color value, then this will get the same value, this thing will get the same value where whatever is the color value is there in that context. So here if I refresh, see the background color has become the same color, red, which is of the color property right now in that context. What is the advantage? The advantage is that now it is completely dependent on this color. So if I change this to, let's say, blue, then this whole thing has become blue. Why? Because when I change this blue, then this is saying that my background color is same as the current color. So current color is blue, so my background color is also changed. So at one place you change and everything changes. So that is the advantage. Okay, so next we'll see some other property. This color thing is almost done for now. Now let's discuss something known as CSS Box Model. This thing is very important in CSS because it discusses some important terminologies like border, padding, margin, these things. These things are central to understand in CSS if you want to design CSS or do various layouts in the CSS. So the idea is that each element which you are going to design in the CSS, so let's say this element, this thing can be represented as a box, and around that box we can have various types of areas which are called content area, padding area, border area, or margin area. And the content box is actually the content area, that is the main box where the actual content is there, but there are lots of other areas also. So this thing we are talking about, this internal area, this thing is only the content box where the actual content is there. So when we see something like this, then we see that okay, right now it is not clear where is the box. So let me give some background color. So let's say background color, I gave something. Now you see this box we are talking about, right? This box is actually where the actual content of this element is there. Now around that content you are actually seeing some area is vacant, right? So actually I have already put some padding or margin, so just remove everything so that you can clearly see that nothing is there. Now again you see by default something is there. So what is happening is that the browsers by default add something. So let me say reset everything. So no padding and no margin by browsers. So this will I will put on the body tag, so everything will be reset. So you see everything is gone. Now this is what I was talking about, that this is the actual main content Now you can see here that this is actually the main content. Now first of all, you can see that you can have some border. I will discuss border later, but for now I'll show you that you can put border by this property. Like you can give, let's say, 6 pixel width. It should be a solid border and the border color is, let's say, blue. Then you will get something like this. So if you cannot see clearly, then it is something like this. So there is a border which is 6 pixel and the content is inside this and there is no gap outside that box, right? So we are seeing something like this. But we can see that, okay, there can be margin or padding. What is margin? Margin is any gap which you say that should be outside the border, that is called margin, and anything which is inside the border and the content, that is called padding. Which means that for simplicity, if I say that here I say that, let's say my padding is 15 pixel, let's say I say this, which means that this part, which means that my content and border, there will be a gap between my content and border, and that will be 15 pixel. Why? Because I have set padding to 15 pixel. If you refresh this, then you see. So this part, this gap, extra part which has been created, that thing is padding. So padding is actually the gap between the border and the content. In contrast, there is something called margin. Margin is outside the border with respect to the whole container's border. How much gap is there between other elements, outside elements, and that element? So if I put something like this, that let's say margin is, let's say, 20 pixel, then you see what happened. Actually, outside this box we are having a margin, a gap of 20 pixel. Now there are various things which we'll see that this, like, one property I am setting and then everything, all the four sides we are getting margin. So we can customize that only one side or two sides, how we are getting the different margins. That will come back to it. But for now, the idea is that you have to understand what is the basic CSS box model. So you have understood that what is margin and what is padding. Okay, we'll come back to it. Let's start with normal width height properties, which are very common in CSS. So obviously from the name it's obvious that width sets the width of a element, and its syntax is something like this. So width, and then after that we can set the size or width of the element, which means that here I can say that I don't want my width to be like, right, by default it is like this much. So let's make this somewhat lesser. But the idea is that by default it is like it is going towards taking the space of the whole available space, whole available container width wise. I don't want that. Let's say I want the width to be only, let's say, 500 pixel. Then you can see that it will be only this much, right? I can say it 800 pixel, or I can say it 300 pixel. You're understanding the idea. So the width decides that how much should be the width of that element. I am applying that on this div, and that's why its width is changing. Let's see. And obviously I was also giving the thing in pixels. You can give it like whatever, let's say 20 rem or something like that, which means that any units you can use. Okay, and percentage will be that whatever is the width of container, the percentage of that, which means that if width, this whole width is 100%, then you can say that my width might be, let's say, 50% of that. So it will take 50% of the space. Mind you that this is relative to, you can see, this is relative to the available space. So if available space is this much, it is taking this much of 50% of this much. If available space is this much, then it is taking 50% of whatever is the available space. Okay. Apart from that, and by default the value is auto, which means that this by default auto means that whatever space is available, it will take 100% of that. There is something known as fit content. What if I don't want this random size? I want only that much width, whatever is needed for my content to fit properly. For that, you can write width fit content. If you do that, then you will see that it takes only that much width, whatever is necessary to fit the content. That might be helpful in some cases, as you might expect. Okay. This we already discussed, that initial value of any block level element like div or these things will be auto, and auto means that it will take the whole or 100% of the containing blocks, containing container block, whatever is the available space, it means that it will take. Now there is something known as min width and max width. What does this mean? See, apart from width, which gives the exact width what it should be there, you can specify min width, that at least it should be this much, but it can be more than that. So let's say right now we are having width fit content, which means that whatever is the content, width will be that much only. But what if we say that no, you fit the content, but at least min width should be, let's say, 300 pixel, which means that you see that even if I have said fit content, but I have also specified that the width cannot be smaller than 300 pixel, and that's why it is this much big. However, this means that it will still fit content. But the criteria is that it should be at least 300 pixel. Now, if I keep on writing more text in this, then after it will cross this, then it will keep on fitting the text. But it should not be less than this width. So let's say I increase the size of the content, something like this. Then you see that now it is increasing, right? So if I write more text, it keeps fitting the content, but I said that at least 300 pixel should be the width. However, now let's say I say max width also, and max width is, let's say, 500 pixel. Then I say that minimum 300 should be there, but it should not cross 500. If it crosses 500, then it will wrap. So my container cannot grow more than 500 pixel in width. So now you understand that it cannot be less than 300 pixel and it cannot be more than 500 pixel. If it is that more than that, then the content will automatically wrap around it. So that is what you mean by min and max width. Now max width can be set to none, which will set no limit to the width of the container, which means that even if it is going across the page, then also it will not wrap at all. So, and then this is not generally used because obviously we want to have this can be used in special situations, but there is something like that, just know that. But otherwise, mainly you will be properly handling min width and max width properly as per the page which you are designing. Similarly, height sets the element's height, which means that I can write similarly any height which I want to set. So let's say I want to set the height to be 200 pixel. Then this will be something like this. Let's keep the content small only. So we saw, see, width by default, if we don't say height, then obviously width it was taking whole space. But now I am saying that no, obviously one line is there, then only this much height is there. But no, I want height to be 200 pixel at least. It is not at least, it is exact. At least will come, like minimum height and maximum height is also there. So I want exact its height to be 200 pixel. Now we'll see that there is something called fit content in this also, right? And there is something called percentage representation also you can do. By default here also it is auto. Now it does not mean, auto here does not mean that it will take full height of the content. By default it was auto and it was taking only this same line. Why? Because by default there is no height. By default there is width of the page, but by default there is no height of the whole page. Height of the whole container, the root element, the HTML or body element, actually it depends on the content itself. As the content size grows, as the page size also grows, the page height also grows. Initially the page height you can assume as 0. Like initially if you don't have any content in HTML, then the page width will be width of the web page, but page height will be actually 0, and as you keep on putting content, its height is increasing. So in that context, you do that, then it is fine. So let's try doing something like that. So let's put height is equal to 50%. Now you see that height I set 50%, but then also it is only this much. Why? Because I'm not saying that height of the whole page. I'm saying height of whatever is my parent element's height is there. Now my parent element's height is 0 initially, because as my content is growing, then only its height is growing. And that's why the initial value is auto, but that auto does not translate into full height. That auto simply translate into whatever the content is there, and as per the content the height will be computed, and initially that height will be 0 because there is no content in the whole page. Now again we can set min height and max height here also. So let's say I say that it's min height. So again this will not work. So let's put some height, let's say 200 pixel, that is fine. So 200 pixel height is there. Let's keep it 100 only. Okay, this much is there. But now I'm saying that it should be at least this much, but it can go beyond this also. So for that, what should I do? I should not put exact height. I could put min height. So if I put min height, then definitely it will be this much. But if I keep on adding new lines, let's say I add new line and then hello world, I add new line and then hello world, then what will keep on happening is that this is growing. Now as this will cross the minimum height, then you will see that height can grow beyond minimum height also, because I have not said it is exact height, I have said it is minimum height. So let's try that. So let's put a few more lines and hello world. So now you will see that, see, it is increasing. Why? Because I'm not saying exact height. I'm not saying the exact height is 100 pixel. See, if I say exact height 100 pixel, then even if the content is overflowing, the height of the container, I have said that it has to be 100 pixel, it cannot be more than that. So now you understand, but now there are ways which we'll discuss later, that okay, this is overflowing, then what should be the behavior, whether the overflowed content should be hidden or not. So those all things we can configure, but for now it is plain and simple. We understood that if we are saying min height is this much, then at least it will be this much even if content is less, and if content is more, then it can grow beyond that also. Okay, fine. And similarly, like min width we discussed, and max width we discussed. Similarly, min height and max height is also there. Max height means that it cannot have a height more than that, right? Okay, so that is fine. That is fine. The point is that max height also has none property which sets no limit on the height of the box, which means that it can grow infinitely long web page. It will not have any restriction on the height of that thing.